I'm just watching people come in, and I want to make sure we pause for a moment so everybody can come in and get settled. And then we'll go ahead and start. It is right at that time. So we'll just give it a couple of other seconds. Thank you all for coming back. I know 10 minutes was a short break, but it was such a robust conversation earlier. I think I feel energized. I hope you do as well. Um, Great solutions reside in communities. Communities are really able to decide what works and do it. And they've done it in such creative ways. It's just really exciting. So, Jen and Michaela, I think I'm going to go ahead and introduce you so we don't miss any of your precious time. Um, Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Waitzig. I'm the field director for NTech, and I'm the managing partner at Change Matrix. And my favorite part of today is I get to be the moderator and host of this session, Systems of Care, Innovations in School Mental Health Services in Rural School Districts. A lot of things that we're very excited about. Mental health services in school districts that are rural. It's going to be really exciting. I think there's a lot that we're going to learn about how to not just partner with schools, but actually look at schools as a place where kids are, where the young people are. And we can actually do a better job of integrating these services in a really meaningful way. And so, Michaela and Jen are here to take us through this session, and I'm going to just turn it right over to them so they can introduce themselves to you and lead us through what I think is going to be a really amazing opportunity to learn. So, Jen and Michaela, take it away.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming today. We'll do introductions in a second, but coming from the education world, we love to ground ourselves in what we're going to do before we do it. And I think one of the best ways to do that is with a quote that really centers. And I think this really centers the work that we're doing. And that's that the world needs dreamers and the world needs doers. But above all, the world needs most are dreamers that do. And that really centers the work and how we got here today to speak with all of you. My name is, let me get to the right screen here, Jen Pollock, and I coordinate our school mental health program here at ESU number 3. And then Michaela.
Hello, my name is Michaela Laborde, and I'm the Executive Director of Student Services here at ESU 3. We are located in the Omaha area, and we'll tell you more about what an educational service unit is a little bit later as we just start to describe our work and the opportunity we have with our System of Care grant. But for now, just know Jen and I are both school administrators. We've had many years of supporting schools and are both very passionate about serving youth who are at risk and have behavioral health challenges that, of course, impact their learning. And so it's been quite an honor to be involved with this project. And I'm telling you, Jen Pollock is the real deal. She is hopefully going to tell you a little bit more about herself, but she's a school psychologist by trade, and she's had many years in the schools and is doing just a fabulous job with this work. So I'm so glad she's here and a part of our school mental health team.
Oh, thank you, Michaela. Yes, I am deeply passionate about this work, and I am fortunate that I get to work with a pretty incredible team of school mental health therapists. I have the great support of our service unit and our districts, our 8 rural districts that we're going to talk a little bit more about soon. But one of the things that I just think is so unique and such a wonderful opportunity is this work has been done opposite of what we are doing it for many years. Districts have contracted with service providers to come in and help youth who need that one-on-one therapeutic support for many, many years. That's not new. Communities have been super supportive of and engaged in that work. What I love that I get to do is I get to bridge that work and intentionally build our community into schools. So I'm super excited about that. While we're here today, though, we want to get to know each of you who are in our session today. So we're going to use this random question generator. If you can locate the chat feature, we'll have you drop your name and what you do and where you're from, and then maybe the answer to this fun question here. Let's see what we get. All right. The question is, would you rather be able to fly or be invisible? If you could pick one of those, what would you do? I'll tell you, I'm terrified of heights, so it would not be fly. I think invisible would be great. We got some good ones in there, Michaela.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Someone saying, "Can I please be invisible?" I feel that way some days too.
So true. So true. Well, thank you guys for that. I love that we have such a diverse group of professionals in the room today. And I really look forward to our opportunity for questions and answers and just opportunities to collaborate. So important. So, in our session today, we're really going to focus on three main things. First, we want to go on a journey with you and tell you about what we've been doing in the last year and a half with our work. We want to give you access to and share some of the things that we've been doing in terms of resources that have been developed. And we want to collaborate and reflect and vision with other great like-minded folks who can really help us be better at the work that we are doing.
Okay, so I promised a little bit of a description about what service units are. Now, about 45 out of 50 states have some sort of service agency structure. And so here in Nebraska, a little over 50 years ago, the state of Nebraska divided up the state and said, we need regional education offices that can kind of be a liaison between the State Department of Ed and our local school districts. And so Rule 84 in Nebraska was born. And we are very lucky to be here in what is, ultimately the most metropolitan area in Nebraska, which isn't saying a whole lot. But here in Omaha, our service unit serves a 4-county area. And so we work with 18 school districts in that area, and they range in size from being, the third largest district in the state that has about 25,000 students, all the way down to one of the smallest in the state that has 225 students. And so we have a wide range of districts, and of course, they have a very wide range of needs. But the whole point of a service unit is to provide professional learning, technology support, and student services that come under the umbrella of special education and now behavioral health services to the districts. A lot of times we can be more efficient, we can be more effective, we can have certain expertise that maybe a school district might not have. And so this system of care grant and doing work in the area of school mental health by a service unit is kind of a great concept. And there are places throughout the country where this is happening. But I think we are a little unique in it being a system of care grant that was then being provided through a service unit. So I'm sorry, I was gonna, yep, that's what I was gonna say. So I'm not ready yet, Jen, but I'll say next slide. So thank you.
Okay.
All right, so the next slide are our behavioral health regions. So Nebraska is also divided into 6 regions for our Department of Health and Human Services. And so we are very lucky in this area to be in Region 6, and they are really the awardee of the System of Care grant. And we've had this relationship where we've kind of put forward this work. So those are efficient and effective behavioral health supports to all Nebraskans, and a portion of those are for youth. And so those are our behavioral health regions. Next slide. So when all of this started, my boss was on a system of care committee for kind of one of the more initial rounds of system of care that the state of Nebraska had. And so as we were looking to figure out how to expand and sustain this work, we started talking about this notion of service units providing these kinds of services to our districts. And so out of that, this partnership has been born, and we were awarded one of the expansion and sustainability grants. And so ESU3 is really the primary implementer of that work by design. And then we, of course, work, hand in hand with our Region 6 project director to make sure that we're promoting that expansion of these services and the sustainability aspect. All right, so as that grant was being developed, we really had to think through what were some unique needs that we had here in this area. And so I mentioned we have a very metropolitan area in Omaha, and then we also have rural counties that are just adjacent to Omaha, but seem like they're a million miles away. And so Cass and Washington counties are kind of at the edges of our region, and there's really limited mental health services available. And those communities, sure, are not, it's 45 minutes or an hour away from Omaha, but that 45 minutes or an hour really does provide quite a barrier to accessing services. So when we looked at kind of the landscape and the need for this, we really wanted to build bridges and increase the family and youth access to school mental health services through this notion of school as hub. So first and foremost, and I know all of you are experiencing this, there's a workforce shortage. So while there are some providers in Omaha, most families, if they could figure out how to even get themselves on a list, were on a wait list for months at a time. And you all know that when a young person is having a mental health either crisis or very clearly has a need in the area of behavioral health, they can't wait months to access those services. And so the workforce shortage has been, of course, something really specific that we were wanting to address by working and partnering to have this occur in the school system. There was a lot of fragmented service delivery. So that was the other piece, is that, when a child or a youth is receiving treatment, there's always just that difficulty in keeping everyone on the same page. So the classroom teacher might not know about what's going on. The therapist might not know what's going on in the class. And so keeping everyone on the same page has always been a challenge. Just scarcity and responsiveness, just not access to those services, transportation barriers, just the time it would take. There were very limited resources to support these needs in our rural counties. And then finally, we were worried about the stigma around mental health in our more rural settings. And so these were all part of the local context that helped us develop the proposal, and are the things that we're working to get through as we speak. So, Jen?
So fast forward to becoming the recipients of this grant, and we are really charged with expanding and enhancing those services in those rural counties that Michaela just mentioned to serve approximately the 7,500 youth birth to 21 in those counties through our school mental health services. So pretty exciting. When you dream and do, it's pretty exciting. So digging in a little bit more to the districts that we serve, there are 8 districts. As Michaela mentioned, they go down as small as 275 all the way up to about 2,300 students. Some of these districts are K-12 building that serve all their youth. Some of them have multiple buildings that serve multiple levels. So there's a lot of uniqueness in the way services are delivered, depending on what that school and that local context is like. We have number of staff in the buildings anywhere from 39 to 141 certificated staff supporting students in there. So again, when you're thinking about shortages and capacity to implement, those are important things to think about. Other context that is important to know, in these communities, the free reduced lunch rates range from about 20% to 42%. So we are seeing a lot of that. And then, as Michaela mentioned, that average drive to the Omaha metro area is about 50 miles, about 50 minutes to get to and from the Omaha metro area. Some of our families also would go as far as Lincoln, which is about like equidistant, about the same that they'd be traveling for some of these supports. So I can tell you all day about how great these services are and how much I love them and the impact that they're having, but I'd really rather you be able to hear it from one of our building principals and some of the work that we've already done in our short time. So let me get that going for you.
It was just something that I needed in my life at that particular moment because I was immediately needing more help.
It's really hard right now for parents to be able to find mental health support.
Mental health is something you wake up and it's not just gone. It's something you have to deal with every single day of your life.
Our school mental health service operates as part of our complete systems. And so we have things that we offer to all students, and that's going to include things like classroom teacher support and guidance counselor lessons. Then we layer on things like one-on-one times with guidance counselors or small group sessions if we're maybe working on a certain skill. And so where the additional layer of mental health support has been so critical to us is that when we've exhausted our resources, we have that additional layer of a licensed mental health practitioner that can come help serve our students that might need a little bit more than we can give them during the school day.
My assistant principal came up to me and he talked to me about this new service that I could meet with a therapist at school. It was exciting.
I think when we can offer the therapist and support right in the school, it allows us to be flexible and more reactive to the needs of a student.
It was helping me work through my issues and really process the stuff that happened to me on like a daily basis, work issues, school issues, social issues.
It wasn't just, okay, this kid is going to start seeing a therapist. It added that therapist as part of our whole team.
It's just awesome because they're there, like they're at school. It was completely good. It was just something that I needed in my life at that particular moment.
When we think about some of our families that might be working 2 or 3 jobs and trying to make a trip to Omaha to get in to see a counselor could be a really burden on a family. A lot of times what we've found is that parents are struggling with the same things that we are. And so the parent peer mentors gives them an opportunity to have some coaching and some support.
I am very motivated to help parents. I want to help them so that they don't feel alone and they don't feel like they have to navigate by themselves.
If we would have had a mentor leading us when our son was going through all this, I feel like we maybe could have gotten him some help a little bit earlier on.
If I had gotten help at an earlier age, it would have been vital to helping me.
The mentors are parents that have gone through it themselves, and we're going to be able to help support those parents to have a more successful relationship with their child that's going through this struggle.
I feel like I have a lot of knowledge of the system now after what I went through. So becoming a parent peer mentor is something that I wanted to use that knowledge so that I could help other people. I don't want them to feel like they're alone.
I think if my mom had somebody there for her that she can go to, I think it would have been really vital to her.
I think this program is invaluable. I'm excited that we were some of the first to get to try it. The additional layers of the systems of care and mental health support are critical to not only us being in a smaller community, but any community.
It makes me feel really good. It's because I know the struggle it was to go through those things without help. Kids shouldn't have to suffer in school. They should be able to learn and really just focus on being a kid.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing right now and being embedded in our school.
It was just something.
Important information just about the work that we're doing. We started this work back in December 2021. Our joke is building the plane as we fly it. But what we were able to do right away is gather some really good information from our youth that were accessing services. So just to orient you to what you see on the screen, first of all, that QR code should work. If you'd like to check out our school mental health website, you're certainly welcome to do that. There's some data on there. We have some updated data as well. But what I really want to talk about right now is what our youth were saying at the onset of services. We know that a lot of youth were identifying that they had someone to turn to if they were in a moment of crisis. So our students were connected, and that they agreed that they had people they could do enjoyable things. So we were doing well on that social connectedness side with our youth. Regardless of that, though, we had youth that were definitely reporting hopelessness and nervousness and restlessness and even depression at the onset of services. That really is what brought them there. In that time, and this data is through February 2023, we've served 185 students in a therapeutic setting at school during the school day. And when you think about that, you're thinking about 185 kids who have been seen, say, anywhere from 12 to 20 sessions, an hour a week. That's a lot of instructional time that isn't missed anymore. That's a lot of time that isn't spent in a car back and forth to get to services if they could even access those services. So I'm really proud of that data and of that work. There's definitely a need, and we're doing our best to rise to that need. No different than what the rest of the country is feeling returning to school after the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, we know that kids were feeling hopeless, having persistent sadness. About 40% of kids leading up to that. Suicide and suicide ideation has definitely been on the rise, and something that we're experiencing here in our own community as well. We returned to learning after the COVID pandemic really right away in August of 2020. Our schools opened their doors. We had kids in session every day. We had COVID protocols. And just like everywhere else, we really saw a rise in anxiety and depression. Chronic absenteeism and school refusal have definitely continued to be on the rise. Attendance issues and even those externalizing behaviors that we're seeing in the classroom have really impacted instruction. Our students' availability just to learn obviously has been impacted. And so I'm going to let Dylan kind of talk about what led him to recognize and seek out our school mental health services.
I moved over from Omaha to Blair during 4th grade, and that's kind of where like stuff got turned up a notch. I was, not doing things that were asked of me. It was just me not listening to teachers, or me not doing my homework, or me skipping class. So eventually that led to me going to one of these behavioral institutions. If I would have gotten help at Blair, right, I wouldn't have needed to go through any of that, like none of it. I was rambunctious, right? I was causing problems, but I had a good heart, but I just didn't know how to control myself. So when I decided to come back, my assistant principal came up to me and he talked to me about this new service that I could meet with a therapist at school. It was, it was exciting. It was helping me work through my issues and really process the stuff that happened to me on like a daily basis, work issues, school issues, social issues. It was just awesome because they're there, like they're at school. When, that when the week rolls around, you're going to get a chance to meet with somebody, right? I can see the pain in others when I go through school, So to know that they have an immediate resource that they can tap into, they could just go to one place and just find what they need right there and then. It makes me feel really good. It's like, because I know the struggle it was to go through those things without help, Kids shouldn't have to suffer in school. They should be able to learn and really just focus on being a kid,
And I'm excited to share, Dylan has just recently graduated. Tomorrow, I think, is his last day, which is really exciting and has been such a champion of our work. So when we're talking about local context and need, I just feel like it's really important to put this data in front of everyone as well. A couple things that I want to draw your attention to. The first one is the positive depression screens. Children's Behavioral Health and Medical Center here in the Omaha metro area started at all their primary care clinics doing a depression screen for all the youth that came through their doors starting in 2021. And through 2022, I have data through August of 2022. And you can just see the rise that we've seen in those positive depression screens for kids who are just coming into the care clinic for a cold or a virus or whatever it may be. But I'm grateful that they're doing these screens because it allows us to know, are we meeting the mark? Are we moving the needle? One needle that I am just so anxious to get to zero as soon as we possibly can is suicide rates here in the Omaha metro area. When we look at data that's collected, and this is just in the Omaha metro area, so it doesn't even include our more rural districts. Sadly, the numbers would be even higher. In Q1 of 2022, so January to March of 2022, we had 1 death by suicide in the 10 to 19 range. So far this year alone, we've had 4 deaths by suicide in that range. So there's a huge need, and we are just doing our best to increase access so that we don't have to continue to have these statistics and these numbers in our youth. So what are we doing? Our project goal has these 4 following objectives. One is developing that single point of access to school mental health services. We've developed a great referral system. We have one person in every district that is the go-to, that is the liaison to support our work. We're focused on building systems around early identification. We all know that the sooner we can identify the needs, the better outcomes our youth have. We have a really cool parent-peer mentorship program that we'll talk about here in a little bit that has been wonderful and just flourished and helped really engagement in our communities. We are building infrastructure to support this work within the school setting so that we are not just another thing. I think earlier we talked about parachuting in and parachuting out. Our goal is building that structure so that it far exceeds us when and if our time is done. And then, of course, always lingering out there with any of this work is sustainability. And one of the cool things and challenging things that we get to do is consider insurance billing as a measure of sustainability, financial sustainability with this work. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second.
Okay, so speaking of just things we're excited about doing, I get the opportunity to chat a little bit about an opportunity that we had, and this phrase up here, "systems not superheroes," is actually a direct quote from our Department of Education Secretary, Miguel Cardona. So because this system of care grant and the work we're doing in our rural schools, he caught wind of that, and he actually visited Nebraska and came to a service unit just a few months ago. So I'll talk about that. But I want to just take a minute and simmer on this phrase that he used: systems, not superheroes. So here's the deal. We have amazing folks in both mental health and our education system that go into these fields because they love kids and they want to help. They love individuals and they want to help everyone. And that is amazing work. And those interactions at that individual level are critically important. But one of the things that we've recognized over the years is that those individual interactions, while are amazing, really can be so much more. We are all out of time and out of energy and out of resources. And so in order to maximize our time, energy, and resources, we really have to look towards the system. So Dr. Miguel Cardona used this phrase because that notion of just providing direct and therapeutic individual services is not enough. So I'm excited that we had a chance. And Jen, if you'll show the next slide. This is us. This is our team, our smallish team of therapists. We have some of our school administrators in the districts we serve in this picture as well. As you can see, I'm standing right next to Dr. Cardona. I was such a fangirl, but he really did have such a good handle on school mental health. He found such importance in the work we were doing, and just talked a lot about the system building, which is what we hope is unique about some of the work we're engaging in through our system of care grant, because we want to make sure kids have access to high quality services that are just in time, just the right dosage, and completely, taking into consideration the whole child. So that kids can learn and flourish and be well, and we can be a part of that. So he was amazing, and the visit was like a career highlight, and it's all because of this work we're getting to do. So it was fabulous.
So when we think about school mental health services, again, not necessarily new, but I do think the way that we're doing it, implementing a system of care in our work is really important. And one of the ways that we're doing that is our school mental health therapists aren't just coming in to provide those services and leaving at the end of the day. They get to do that, and they're really embedded in our multi-tiered systems of support. And in school language, that is, how are we providing exactly what Michaela talked about, the right level of support and the right time at that right dosage to maximize our efficiencies and our effectiveness in those supports. So our school mental health therapists do the traditional kind of billable things, right? That one-on-one therapeutic time, but they're also providing what we call tier 2 level supports. And that could be, they might just be coaching or collaborating on a student, really providing that wraparound support to the student and family, whether that's coming back from some residential treatment or after a crisis that they may have experienced, helping them re-enter that school in a successful way. But it's also at that tier 1 level, that foundational level. So our therapists are in classrooms. They are coaching and collaborating with classroom teachers around what mental health might look like in the classroom, what strategies might be effective in the classroom to support that student or students in their classroom who may benefit from that. They're providing professional development opportunities to our schools. They're supporting that universal screening. And I think perhaps most importantly, they're a part of that problem-solving process. They're a seat at the table as we're talking about students and systems and how could we be better? What do we need? They're at the table engaging in those conversations with an equal seat as a tremendous professional with great experience and expertise, really collaborating to understand the school side and the implications that services in schools provide. So that has been a really cool innovation that we've engaged in this year.
Yeah, and this work wasn't new. So what was wonderful about this is that as a service unit, one of the things we were already doing with all of our districts and schools was helping them with MTSS. Now, I know the concept of multi-tiered system of support is nothing new to those of you in public health, which I see many of you kind of have that lens that you're looking through. But MTSS in schools is also not new. We've been there, done that. But it has really been amazing over the past, I would say, decade or so to see MTSS rise back up to the top as a framework for continuous improvement. So schools have to be accredited. They have to do a lot of stuff, but schools are really there to help kids learn. And so we want to improve learning outcomes for all kiddos, regardless of what circumstances they have. We want all kids learning and being successful. And so that MTSS framework is one that we were already really focusing on with our districts. There are 4 critical components in our Nebraska MTSS model, and we are working through those. We work through those with our districts in a variety of ways. And so we are consultants to those districts and those teams at the school level. We have lots of professional learning events that we invite them to. And we offer resources and tools and just general support so they can build out their tiered approach. And we focus in these 4 specific areas. The first one is just the infrastructure and leadership development. And so that is huge when we talk about leaning into systems. That is that infrastructure piece. Then of course you see that in our grant, right? That's so important, because if you're depending upon, we all have awesome people in our lives, but if they win the lottery and move on to a new position, have you guys ever experienced that? Someone moves on and everything falls apart. So we want to build up the infrastructure so that it keeps going and the work keeps moving forward. We have that layered continuum of support. One of the most important pieces of the MTSS puzzle is the data-based problem solving. And schools, we're hit or miss with this, but database problem solving is essential when we're looking at meeting any need that a student might have, whether that's learning how to read or mathematics or their social emotional well-being. So those are important pieces and something that we really focus on heavily. And then communication and collaboration, because it does take everyone to be an important part of this process for it to run smoothly. So, we were really engaged in this work with our districts anyways. And so the opportunity to kind of go at it from an MTSS lens and plug in this notion of school mental health, our districts, our communities, our parents, our kids, they were all screaming they needed mental health support. And we were able to use this familiar framework as kind of a vehicle to deliver that information and help set it up so that it is sustainable. So we are working at prevention and not just intervention. And so I'm really excited that we are able to kind of take something that could be clinical in nature and really adapt it so that it works well in a school setting. The next slide is just a visual of that notion: prevention for all students, enrichment for all students, and intervention for all students. So we're really looking at that whole child and making sure that we're wrapping around and supporting them in any way they need so they can be successful. So we're really, really excited about that innovation and so thankful that we are able to we have the funding of this system of care grant so that we can work through, as Jen mentioned, all those non-billable pieces to the puzzle, because they are very, very essential.
So as we sort of mentioned, a second innovation is our therapists aren't just doing or just only doing those billable services. They really are deeply embedded to develop this continuum of service delivery. So again, not only are they the vehicle for some of these activities, groups, or collaboration or problem solving, but they're helping to coach on the side and develop others in those activities as well. So they're not the only keeper of that great knowledge and that great experience, but they get to share that with everybody at all levels. So I just wanted to take a moment to share some of the things that we've been doing at each of the levels and some of the data that we have around that. So when we think about that base, that tier one, we call it core sometimes, but what we're doing for all kids all the time. As a school mental health, our school mental health services, we are helping support universal screening for all of our students. And we're really looking at not only that as one piece of data, but what other data do we have to use in a proactive or preventative way to make good decisions on what our buildings and our schools need to support the students that they're serving. We are training and trainers of youth mental health first aid. So we are providing that to our districts as well, so they can recognize and respond to mental health services. We're providing a lot of individualized training to our districts around things that are local to the community and context that we're serving as well. And like I said, we're engaged in that problem-solving process, really modeling what that can look like. So since December 2021, we have trained 964 staff in something related to school mental health services, whether that's what is a multi-tiered system of support or youth mental health first aid or specific strategies to support, for example, anxiety in the classroom. So we've really been able to engage in that. And so far, 75% of our districts have jumped on board with universal screening, or we're already doing that prior to our work, which is really cool. When we think about what do we have to intensify to, how can we support that tier 2 level of intervention? We are trained and support SET and CBIT groups. So we're really looking at trauma-informed practices related to our youth. We provide other small groups. So this resiliency education program, really focusing on honing in, developing, and enhancing the strength of our youth to be resilient, which is really awesome. Utilizing collaborative, proactive solutions and training our teachers in that as well. And just a whole bunch of other group interventions that you are likely familiar with. Since starting, again, back in that December to April, about 25% of all the students we have served have been at that tier 2 level, that small group. Of those, 99% of them will be successfully discharged by the end of this school year. So they're meeting their goals and objectives related to those group interventions. And what I think is really interesting is actually the primary mode of service delivery is consultation. Our school staff are really valuing that opportunity to collaborate and problem solve ongoing around youth and how mental health is impacting them in the classroom, and to refine their skills of support around students. And then that tier 3, that intensive level. So we've got, of course, all the modalities that you're no doubt familiar with. But we are really focused on motivational interviewing for our students and growing them and having them be invested and take ownership in their outcomes. And that's from kindergarten through 12th grade. We're doing that whole grade span with that, which I think is really cool. All of our therapists are trained in trauma-focused CBT as well, which a great component of that, as you guys are likely well aware, is the parent component. So we are bringing our families in to those services and supporting them in that way as a family unit. ACT therapy and CBT are another one that we use quite a bit with our students. And then the other thing that we're supporting our districts in and our youth in are risk assessments and supporting them in engaging in risk assessments. And then most importantly, what is the response to that? What are the proactive, preventative things that we can be doing before we get to that point? And then that transition of a student back in after, for example, a residential treatment stay. So looking at our data, this is our updated data for through April 2023. We've had 331 youth referred for school mental health services. 264 of those were unique referrals, meaning they were just referred one time. We have had some kind of retread come back through. And most commonly what that has been a student maybe started at that tier 3 level and successfully discharged. And then we realized, you know what, maybe they would benefit from that small group or some ongoing consultation and collaboration in that support. Or vice versa. Maybe they started at that consultation or small group level, and we did need to intensify that level of support. Since starting services, we've had to refer out, or we have referred out 36 youth to either a higher level of care or maybe it just wasn't a fit in terms of what they needed. So for example, maybe they really needed more family therapy support, and that isn't what we're providing at this time. 61% of our youth have been successfully discharged. Like I said, that's kind of skewed based on sometimes we do need to increase or decrease the level of support that we're providing. And to this point, we've had 78 youth discharged this year. We've got a lot more that since April through the end of the school year will be discharged as well because of their ability to meet those treatment goals and objectives, which is really exciting. So we've had the opportunity again to work really closely with our school administrators and our school staff related to our school mental health services. And here is just one sharing her thoughts.
I think often as educators, we feel like there's just one more thing being put on our plate. One of the biggest challenges that teachers face is that a lot of social emotional learning is starting to fall on them. They spend the most time with each of our students, and they tend to know the triggers that a kiddo might show or be able to share changes in behavior or certain things that at my level or at the counselor level we might not notice right away. So not only are they needing to teach kids how to read and do math, they're also teaching kids how to problem solve and how to be a friend and how to deal with big emotions. So what we've learned quickly is that the school mental health services are not one more thing. They have actually taken something off our plate and allowed us to have resources we didn't even know we had access to. I think when we can offer the therapists and support right in the school, it allows us to be flexible and more reactive to the needs of a student and right during their school day, which I think is really important when we think about some of our families that might be working 2 or 3 jobs and trying to make a trip to Omaha to get in to see a counselor can be a really burden on a family. And so I think anytime we can offer those services in the smaller communities surrounding the metros is really powerful.
One of the things that I just love that Megan says in this is we can't do this alone. And oftentimes schools feel like things are done to them rather than with them. And isn't that the same for our families, right? They often feel like things are done to them and not with them. And that's the whole idea of system of care. And so the fit of system of care through the lens of a school just really seemed to make sense for us. So one of the other innovations that we have engaged in with our districts and continue to engage in with our districts is, again, being really systematic about the way that we're building infrastructure of support, really embedding school mental health services in just the way we do business in schools. So one of the ways that we do that is being very intentional about all the initiatives that schools take on and how they connect to a system of support for students. So we hear it all the time. We talk about SEL, we talk about PBIS, we talk about all these things, but really what they are frameworks of support for kids. So we keep going back to they're all one and the same. They're all systems of support for kids that we need to use data. We need to continuously improve. We need to make good database decisions around to make sure that what we're putting into place meets our students' needs. One of the really cool things that we've done, we've developed a school mental health workshop. We've used some things from the MHTTC, the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. Right? Did I get that right? Okay. Around some modules that they've created on what is a comprehensive school mental health system. And then we really kind of married that to that multi-tiered system of support, utilizing their SHAPE assessment. So our districts come in the summer, they take a couple days, and we really dig into what is your current reality. And then we do some really dynamic action planning centered around their goals, their continuous improvement plans and processes to help move this work forward. And then we provide ongoing technical assistance to our districts, to our buildings related to their goals and their systems development. So I just talked about that a little bit, but what I really want to talk about is how we do action planning with our districts. Because again, action planning tends to be, it can get really stagnant, and it's always the same thing, right? We're writing that goal, and these are the 4 or 5 action steps that we're going to do next year, and tick, we're done, right? That's not what we wanted to do with our work with our districts. We wanted it to be dynamic. We wanted it to take into account everybody's thoughts about what next steps should be, everybody's voice in that, and that includes families, and that includes youth. So one of the things that we've really developed is this, we call it a spend a buck activity. And all of our participants, after they've engaged in this assessment, they've got all this data sitting in front of them, and now they have to decide, where are we going to start? What is that first step going to be? We do the spend a buck activity. So everybody on the team is given $1, a virtual dollar, if you will, where they decide where they want to spend that money. What is that thing or the area or the activity that they see as the next best step, or where they put the most value in terms of growth or movement in the next school year? And so that's how we develop this spend a buck activity. So we've got a table of stakeholders. It's classroom teachers, it's school psychologists, social workers, counselors, administrators, district level leaders, and yes, families, parents, and youth who are engaged in that process. They're evaluating where they see their building or district at with their school mental health system. And then they're all identifying, this is where I think we need to go next. And then from there, they're having really good conversations about the what's and the whys, and then dreaming the hows of what those next steps will be. And then our last innovation, and innovation is a kind word to give it at this point because we're still so much in the foundational levels of doing this work. One of the pieces related to expansion and sustainability that we were charged with as a service unit is to bill insurance. Billing insurance for behavioral health care is not new. It's very new for schools and service units. It, to our knowledge, has maybe been done one other time in one other place, Michigan, up to this point. So we've really been able to dabble and dream and really learn in this area about how do we build our own internal infrastructures to bill insurance? So that started with us even understanding, what is an NPI number? What does credentialing and paneling even mean in the context of a school system? So we've really been working on that. Then there's the day-to-day. If we're going to bill insurance, both public and private insurances, do we have the right people on the team? Do we have the right level of licensure? We're in a workforce shortage, and that's been hard. And then there's so many complexities related to insurance billing and that intersection of an educational system and what that looks like, the complexities of our state Medicaid plan and what that looks like and how that helps or creates barriers to the work that we want to do. So we are innovating, we're getting creative. We are hoping to start that full out here in the next few months, with our primary focus and our primary mission staying on, we're going to provide services regardless of any family's ability to pay, because the number one thing that it has remained our moral compass in this is access. And access means I have what I need when I need it from people who are highly qualified to provide that support and truly wrap around our youth. So that is something that we're starting. We're excited about, maybe more nervous than excited, but we will definitely learn a lot along the way. So as we're building systems and starting to wrap up today, one of the things that we want to do is we want to continue to expand this work. And expansion means a lot of things. It means depth. It means breadth of services, of who our teams are, how we're developing those around us, and how we're learning from those around us. That includes from our families, that includes our youth. So we're going to continue to grow and expand and take this bumpy journey together with our districts and our communities. And we're really excited about that. And then really visioning forward, our compass will always remain on providing high quality mental health services to our communities that need it the most. And we're really excited to be able to do that. One of the things that we have not talked a lot about today that I just want to make sure that we end with is the impact of our parent peer mentorship program. We have learned along the way the value of parent peer mentorship, and we'll have some parents talk about it here in a second. But one of the things that I just love is when we started this work just a year-ish ago, we had one idea of what parent peer mentorship was going to look like. And that was really just that phone a friend model, right? I'd pick up my phone and I had someone that I could call or text or email as I was navigating this behavioral mental health journey with my child, my family member, whomever it may be. And we learned really quickly that that isn't what our families wanted. They didn't just want that. They wanted to be able to have access to high quality materials so they could learn more about behavioral mental health. They wanted information about decreasing stigma. They wanted information that they could access on their own time because they are juggling multiple jobs. Time is a hot commodity and we needed to honor that. So through this process, we've really had the opportunity to develop a continuum of parent-peer mentorship that really met our families where they're at. And so we'll talk about that. We hear one of our parents talk about that right now.
I know from my experience with my child was he would often get sent to the principal's office. And after so many times, they would end up suspending him. Well, after the second time for us was like, hey, this is out of character for our child. And so for us, it brought awareness to there was something bigger going on. Mental health is something you wake up and it's not just gone. It's something you have to deal with every single day of your life. So we went from 11 to 18 just trying to navigate the system ourselves, trying to figure out what was best. I felt like it was a map that had no starting point or no end point, but I had to hit all these targets. I wanted to become a parent peer mentor because I've been through that struggle, and I don't want another parent to go through it alone or feel like there's something wrong with them because their child needs help. I kind of felt like we were failing him at one point because we weren't getting the help we needed. I think my son and I would have had a better relationship through this whole process. I wish I would have had somebody to reach out to. I am very motivated to help parents. I want to help them so that they don't feel alone and they don't feel like they have to navigate by themselves. Having teachers know what signs to look for is definitely going to help make this group and this service so successful for parents. Because if the parent's feeling it and the teacher's saying it, they're going to be able to put it together and get this child help.
So, one of the things that we learned really quickly is we can have great dreams and ideas of what mentorship should look like and what parents need. And sometimes you miss the mark and you go back and you reevaluate and you listen to what parents need. So I'm really excited and charged by the work that we're doing in the area of parent-peer mentorship. I love that our parents are not only trained, our mentor parents are not only trained in mentorship, but they're trained in the complexities of school systems because we're really marrying two complex systems together. And that's hard. And these issues, as they arise in school, can be incredibly complex. And so I just think that's really cool the way we've done that. And our parents really value having a better understanding of the complexities of school systems and levels of support. So what is a 504? What is special education? And all those other things and jargon that we use in school that really just mean, how are we going to help kids get what they need in the way that they need it so they can learn and grow and be the best them that they can be. So that has been really cool and powerful, and I'm excited to see where that continues to grow. And so looking forward, I alluded to this a little bit ago, but really we just want to continue to grow and expand our depth and breadth of service delivery that meets our communities and our districts where they're at and grows them, because everybody recognizes that we have a mental health crisis in our communities, in our country. And so everybody's on board. I really anticipated that stigma would be maybe a bit more of a barrier as we began to engage in this work. And to my utter shock, it wasn't. It was honestly very easy, if that's the right word to use, to engage in this work. Our parents were on board. Our youth were on board. Our educators were on board. Our other community providers were on board. There is enough need to go around, and they have all been willing collaborators to help solve a need in our community. So I'm really excited about where that is headed and going. And Michaela, is there anything else you want to add in terms of looking forward?
No, I just can't say enough about, again, Jen and the work she's doing. We have fabulous therapists that are out there, grinding with teachers and kids and parents all day, every day. And then to have this level of coordination has just been just essential. So our districts can't say enough good things about this partnership. We are blessed to have the opportunity to do this work, and anxious to see where it goes from here. So yeah, it is 2:49, Jen. Like, you just nailed the session time. We were given an hour. I'm thrilled that we were able to get through all the content. I hope you like those videos. I did drop a link of a PDF of the slides in the chat. So what questions do you have for us? We're very hopeful that you want to know more about something, and we may not have the answer, but we're happy to give it a shot. So what's on your mind? Either type into the chat, or Elizabeth, can they unmute and ask as well? Or
No, it's actually easier if they type into the chat.
Perfect.
It's yeah. If you have a question or answer, and while you're thinking about your questions, I want to remind everybody that at 4:00 Eastern time, so 3 Central, 2 Mountain, 1 Pacific, we're going to reconvene as a whole summit to hear Share Your Story, Diary of a Schizophrenic. So please, let's do some Q&A, but also be ready for that. So the first question from Rick in Alaska is about CMS billing and wondering about oversight and inspection of files. And then we have another question about becoming a peer mentor. So
Rick, you went right to the heart of my anxiety. It's a great question. So I have tried to be really strategic this year, while we still have grant funds, to just start to build our own internal structures and ensuring that we have the capacity, the wherewithal, the training to even begin this journey. So that's really where we've started. We have developed kind of our own internal processes around auditing and best practice and what is in a good note. Region 6 Behavioral Health, who is our partnership with this, has also done an audit as well, and will continue to do that. We early on also, we reached right out to Medicaid and said, hey, guess what? We're going to be doing this. And so we want to collaborate and problem solve and get ahead of as much of it as we can, because we're all learning and growing in that way. And they were very willing collaborators in that way and gave us a lot to think about, and have been great kind of guides on the side whenever we have a, hey, wait, we wonder about whatever it is, have been really collaborative and supportive in that way. So I think they're very interested in where it will go. We hope to begin billing in August next school year and kind of do a slow rollout of what that's going to look like. And so I anticipate we'll have some of those coming up, but I do feel pretty confident in the systems we've developed in our trial runs, if you will, this year.
Yeah. And I would just add that, again, this grant has been a blessing, but Nebraska is one of not too many states that have not expanded their Medicaid. We're working through a lot of kinks, and there are no other school agencies that are engaged in this exploration. And so Nebraska is a state where the only Medicaid and public schools funding comes through special education services. And so we feel very strongly that not every youth who might receive our services should be a student on an IEP or identified as a student with a disability. And so we're working through a lot of that. I'm sure many of you also have work in that area as well. So there's a lot of layers. And so we're continuing to kind of peel them back. And the layers of the onion do make us cry from time to time, but we're going to keep kind of getting through those. So the next question about the peer mentor. So Jen, they have a curriculum, they have a training, and we're recruiting them, and there's a coordinator associated with that, right?
Yep. So we have a lead family coordinator who helps with the training side of parent-peer mentorship, and kind of a curriculum has been developed. And what is great about that is it takes some of the promising and best practices related to mentorship, parent-peer mentorship, and peer mentorship, and rolls it into what does it look like in a school setting. So we've also collaborate with other organizations locally. PTI Nebraska, our Parent Training Institute around special education, has also helped support some of that. Because again, we're a really complex system. in schools alone, let alone some of the system of care work. So that's how they are trained. And then we just actively recruit. Our schools know who those parents are, who'd be great mentors. Students who have successfully discharged, those parents are often the first ones to say, I want to give back. And this is how I know that I can give back and support other families along the way. And then from the very beginning, as referrals come in, we are offering and trying to connect our parents to a mentor if that would be something that they'd like to engage in. So, all right, what other questions do we have out there? I see, Allie, you asked a question about where can you find grants to do more of this work? Great question. I would not call myself an expert in this in any way, shape, or form, but there are a lot of great SAMHSA grants out there that are really looking at expanding the behavioral and mental health work on the school side. So that might be a great place to start. And then I think we got that other question about training to become a parent peer mentor. I hope that I got that for you. What other questions do we have before we journey back together? The other thing that I would add is we did add our website link as well. So feel free to peruse in there. It's certainly a work in progress, and we have so many more great resources that we want and will get onto that website as well. So we hope that you stop by and check it out, and don't hesitate to reach out as well. We would love to continue to collaborate and connect with you all. Good question. Parents, I would say 80% of our parents are actually really engaged in our therapeutic process. They participate in the initial diagnostic interview and the beginning of that. All of our families know that the referral has happened or will happen prior to it occurring. And that's one of the perks of utilizing our and embedding ourselves within the schools is these conversations have happened. Classroom teachers know, principals know, counselors know that this exists. And so they're talking to parents pretty openly about it. Parents can also refer as well. And we've had several parents refer their own child for school mental health services that have been great. I love your question about successful tips to keep and maintain parent engagement. I wish we had a therapist on here because they're really the front lines of really building those great relationships with families. I want to believe that a lot of it also started with our therapists had to build those trusting relationships in the schools and in the communities before we could even start this work in a meaningful way. And so that meant at the beginning of the year, some of our therapists were doing lunch duty. Some of them were helping out at recess. Some of them were just popping into classrooms and asking, how can I be of help today? How can I serve you? And really creating that visibility and trust. And it just has really trickled out. The families that we have struggled with engagement with, I would say it has been centered around just our times and schedules not aligning, juggling multiple jobs, for example, and just finding that common time where we can have those conversations in a meaningful way. Others are, I would say, probably more stigma related, but it really is a very small majority of our families that are engaged in services. Great question. All right. Oh, Elizabeth, if you're talking, we can't hear you. I know that we're coming up to the end of our time and that we should probably start heading back to the main area. Our contact information is up here. If you have any other questions after today, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love to collaborate and learn from others. And thank you, Elizabeth, for hosting this session. And thank you guys for your time today. We appreciate you. And there's a survey. Don't forget to fill out the survey if you haven't already.